In the second week, they will still do 2 sessions a week, still on a Monday and a Friday, and it will still be 3 sets. However, it will now be 12 repetitions of each exercise instead. This ensures that there is progressive overload in the session. He'll still have 2 minutes rest between sets. So the session will consist of single leg hops with alternating legs, squat jumps with a double leg takeoff, obstacle jumps with a double leg takeoff, box jumps with a double leg takeoff, scissor jumps, and lunge jumps. So it remains at 3 sets, but I will increase the intensity by increasing the reps to 12 per exercise. This means that the athlete's muscles have to contract more this week, something allowed by last week's training as his body has adapted. This means that I'm progressively overloading him to allow development. In turn, this will obviously also mean the athlete trains for longer. The session will now last approximately 55 minutes, still enabling time for him to do other things in his day, but pushing him to work for longer. It remains twice a week. He hasn't adapted enough yet for me to feel ready to push him to add another session in the week, and I don't want to cause him injury by overwhelming him with exercise. You can see that I've also made changes to the content of the session, specifically the exercises involved. They'll now do squat jumps, scissor jumps, and lunge jumps as a substitution for some of the previous exercises last week. This will still focus on the muscles in his legs, but it's mainly to prevent tedium. So it's changing up what he does to make it exciting, so he has something to look forward to as opposed to thinking it's the same thing over and over again. The cool down this week will be jogging up to a cone and back, jogging through and jogging backwards on the way back, sidestepping, changing direction each cone and back. So there's 8 cones overall, like the previous week. Lunging at each cone and back, open the gate up and close the gate back, and lunging up and jogging back. The cool down doesn't differ from last week because I want to remain focused on the same muscle groups, and there's only a certain amount of stretches you can do, so I'm not going to change it just yet, as he's only had 2 weeks, so he shouldn't be too bored of it yet. On the third week, the warm-up will consist of something very similar to the cool down for the last week. So he'll jog, it'll be the line of cones again, but I will include 10 cones this time, and he will jog through and back, jog through second time and do a backwards jog back. He'll sidestep changing direction each cone and back, then he will lunge at each cone and back, close the gate up and back, open the gate up and back, lunge and twist up and back, and then he will do a series of sprints to prepare him. So he will sprint to the second cone, then jog to the rest. Then he'll sprint to the fourth cone and jog to the rest. And then he'll sprint to the 8th cone and jog through. Again, this warm-up is changed to prevent tedium, because I don't want him to get bored of the session. And it again focuses on the muscles in his legs, so specifically hamstring and quadriceps. The actual training now will still be plyometric training on a Monday and a Thursday, and there will now be a session included on a Wednesday, but this will be high intensity interval training. So the plyometric training for this week, there will be 4 sets per exercise. Each exercise movement he does will be anaerobic, so 80% of his maximum heart rate, and he will have 2 minutes rest between sets still. He will do single leg hops, depth jumps, obstacle jumps, box jumps, tuck jumps, and split jumps. And again, this will be twice in a week. So the session remains at 12 reps, but I will increase the intensity by increasing the sets to 4. This means that the athlete's muscles have to contract more this week. Again, that was allowed because of that training last week, meaning his body has adapted. And it means that I'm progressively overloading him to allow for that development. This will also mean the athlete trains for longer again, so the session will now last approximately an hour, still enabling him time to do other things in his day, but pushing him to work for longer in that zone, using that energy system for longer as well, meaning that the adaptations allow him to work longer in that in the future. So the sessions remain twice a week for plyometrics, but there's now high intensity interval training on a Wednesday. You can see I've also made changes to the session, specifically the exercises involved. They'll now do depth jumps, tuck jumps, and split jumps as a substitution for some of the previous exercises last week. This will still focus on the muscles in his legs, and again is just to prevent tedium by mixing it up and giving him new, exciting activities to do in the session. By working anaerobically, it's replicating the sprints that he'll be doing in his rugby games and his rugby training. So it's going to give him an advantage as he's not only more used to working using the anaerobic glycolysis energy system, but his muscles are more used to the contractions, and his muscles have more forceful and larger contractions, allowing more power in that sprint. The cool down this week will be a kind of smaller version of a previous warm-up, which is the zigzag cones. So he will initially jog to and touch each, then he'll sidestep through and touching each cone, and then he will jog backwards and touch each cone as he jogs through. Then he'll lunge through, then open and close the gate, so open as he goes up and close the gate as he comes down. And then he will return to a jog through again, just to lower that heart rate, get back to resting, but also stretching out the muscles and ensuring that they don't stiffen. Again, it focuses on the muscles used in the session, so quads, hamstrings, lats, all of those muscle groups that are going to be used in the session, because they're most likely to be at risk of injury. So in addition to all of the increases in intensity and duration of the plyometric training, I will also be adding a session in the week on a Wednesday, and this will be a different type of training. I don't want to add too much plyometric training because he might become bored of it, and there's a limited amount of plyometric movements that can be done in the session. So high intensity interval training will allow a whole new variety of things for him to do. So the interval training will occur on a Wednesday evening and will only be 15 minutes, so won't eat into his already very busy day. He said his rugby training in that day is very low intensity, so I put it there to allow rest days elsewhere. I didn't want to eat into his rest days, and he said it was low intensity, so I felt that I could put that training in there. The session will have the same warm-up and cool-down as the plyometric sessions, as the muscle groups that are used are the same. And the session consists of the following. So for each move, they will perform as many reps as possible in 30 seconds, then rest for 15 seconds. Then they'll continue to the next move. After they've completed all 4 moves, they'll rest for 1 minute before they repeat the circuit. They'll complete 4 circuits in total. The session includes jump squats, burpees, high knees, and a roll to tuck jump. So they'll do jump squats, for example, for 30 seconds, then rest for 15, then move on to burpees for 30 seconds, then rest for 15, and so on. And because of the requirement to perform as many reps as possible, he'll be working at the same training zone as in the plyometric training, so at about 80 to 90% of his maximum heart rate. I chose high intensity interval training as his sideline goal was also to lose weight, and high intensity interval training helps enable that. It burns fat as an energy store instead, which is why it helps you lose weight. In addition, this will help with the muscle toning / definition he wants, and make his body composition more like that of what a rugby player should have, so high muscle percentage and a low fat percentage. Not only will it focus on helping him lose weight, but a lot of the activities such as the jump squats and burpees will be focused on his legs, so again it will help with the plyometric training and correlate with that and help improve the muscle definition and muscle size or strength in his legs as well, so his quads and hamstrings should increase in size with this training as well. In week 4, I will change the warm-up again, and this time it will be resistance band stretches. So initially he'll raise his heart rate, doing shuttle runs up and down the stretch to raise his heart rate, changing speed on command. Then he'll do a series of resistance stretches. So this will be lunges, side steps, push-ups, a front raise, donkey kicks, glute bridges, hamstring stretch and quadricep stretch, and he'll do 10 reps of each. Obviously I will explain those and demonstrate at the time. For the main session, again, the plyometrics will be the same for each day, but they will all have changed from the previous week, and the high intensity interval training will have changed from the previous week also. The plyometric training will now be 3 times a week instead of the previous 2, and the high intensity interval training will still be just the one on Wednesday. So the plyometric training will consist of 4 sets per exercise, and again he'll be working at 80% of his maximum heart rate. He'll have still those 2 minutes rest between sets. This time round he'll be doing single leg hops, skater jumps, obstacle jumps, lateral box shuffles, tuck jumps and jump squats. And I'll carry out this training 3 times a week. So that will be on a Monday, a Thursday and a Friday. So it remains at 4 sets, but I will increase the intensity by increasing the reps to 14. This again means that the athlete's muscles have to contract more this week, meaning that he is progressively overloading to allow development. If he remains doing the same reps and sets, he's not going to make any progress, as it's not pushing his muscles to something where they have to work harder. So in turn, this obviously means that the athlete trains for longer. The session will now last approximately an hour and 10, still enabling time for him to do other things in his day, but pushing him to work for longer in his aerobic glycolysis systems, meaning that the correct adaptations can be made. So he'll now train 3 times a week for plyometrics, but 1 time a week for high intensity interval training. And his body should be able to cope with the extra day by now. I feel that he will have made the correct adaptations, and his body will be able to cope with the extra day and train in that extra day without injury or DOMS. You can see that I've also made changes to the session again, so specifically the exercises involved have changed again this week to prevent boredom. So he will now do skater jumps, lateral box shuffles and jump squats as a substitution for some of the previous exercises last week. This will still focus on the muscles in his legs, mainly to prevent tedium though, so by changing up what he does to make it more exciting. Like I've previously mentioned, I don't want him getting bored of the sessions, so changing the exercises to new things that he hasn't done before will make it exciting and give him something to look forward to. So the cool down will consist of that